Well, good morning, evening, and afternoon to everybody watching, wherever in time you may be.
Wow, grandiose. And it's understandable that you would be grandiose because we have got another brand deal, and in this video we're going to be telling you about our giveaway with Balesa, where you will all get either a free toy or a gift card to Balesa.
It's like Sex Christmas.
Every day is Sex Christmas with Balesa. Very cool that they wanted to do that with us again.
Yeah.
After last time.
We are notoriously difficult to work with. And not due to being, super aggro personalities. It's just that we're not very professional. We struggle to follow up and check our email.
We do struggle with our emails, but if you are a brand wanting to...
But that's our little secret with the audience and not necessarily with the marketing departments of the various brands who are clamoring at our door.
Balesa's great, so we simply had to work with them. This video, we're going to be giving you guys dating advice as two people who are so good at dating, I'd say.
Oh yeah, I've been on at least one.
Dating is its own beast after Mormonism, I'd say. Not that it's not a beast generally, but I think especially so.
Right. Radiocarbon dating is a whole new thing when you haven't believed in evolution your whole life.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, you had to do it to him. Should we enter the brand deal portion of the video?
Let's enter the brand deal portion of the video. Welcome.
We want to tell you guys about the only sex toy company that exists in my mind at this point. I literally cannot think of another one.
No, if you put a gun to my head, I couldn't do it and I wouldn't do it even if I could.
Yeah. Let's get into the two toys that we have with us here today, Tana.
The cases are very cute and very, what's the word for not incognito, but subtle, but
it's like a glasses case.
Exactly. So when it's just sitting on your bedside, you're not like, oh, my 12-inch tentacle dildo. It's like, I've got my...
Yeah. They also deliver in discreet packaging, which I think is nice, especially if you're living in a Mormon area of Utah County. First of all, we have the Air Vibe. That's the one I'm holding. Again, both of these cases are rechargeable, which is so handy because there's nothing worse than forgetting to charge your vibrator.
Oh yeah, it's like you've spent the whole night warming up.
Yeah.
The passion is building. Wow, this climactic moment.
You do not have to wait.
It's happened so many times. Not with the Balesa. Honestly, not since I switched to Balesa.
Not since you chose the Balesa Life.
Exactly.
Yeah. So the Air Vibe has dual stimulation, so we've got G-spot and clitoris at the same time. Gorgeous. We love a multifunctional piece.
If those are new terms for you, we're going to be going over it in the Q&A portion of our...
It's waterproof, ideal, and the brief that they sent us says silent but deadly. I'm not personally a big fan of that phrase, but
after having done girl-defined reaction videos...
Exactly. We're a bit traumatized from last week, but it is silent, which is nice.
I have here the Balesa Thump, a revolutionary pleasure device. Can we just talk about how soft these are?
I know, they really are like a high-quality silicone, I believe it is. The Thump vibrates, sucks, and thumps. 3-in-1.
Which is more than I do on a good day.
The Thump utilizes Balesa's improved pleasure jet technology. We talked about that last time, and we are a big fan of the pleasure jet technology and the term pleasure jet technology.
That's just some good trademarking if I've ever heard it.
So in the description box of this video, you will see our giveaway link, and everyone who clicks the link gets either a gift card or a toy. It was really fun the last giveaway we did, seeing all the feedback from people that were like, I just got a $75 gift card or a free toy. So
you get a sex toy, you get a sex toy, you get a sex toy. It's Sex Christmas for everyone. I just wish we could see the delight on their little faces as they open up their package.
Anyway, so if you want to enter our giveaway, click the link in the description. Also, Balesa is a by women company, which we obviously love. Okay, well, should we get into the dating advice?
Let's do it.
Okay, our first question concerns polyamory and open relationships, which I feel like is sort of a prominent theme in the ex-woman space. So we'll do our best to give advice as people who aren't qualified to give advice, but have opinions.
Or at least share what I've done. I don't know if that qualifies as storytelling.
Oh, first of all, this person says, I look up to you both in your relationships with your partners a lot. My husband, who is 30, and I, 23, together 4 years, married 1 year, have recently started opening up our relationship to other experiences/people, and it has been a little rocky. He wants me to experience everything life has to offer because I haven't dated anyone other than him before and basically committed to him right at 18. I do feel like that's a big reason people do open relationships after leaving Mormonism, because if you barely dated or you had no sexual experience before getting married, makes sense. Very understandable.
Some people really need to figure out who they are independently of the social structure that's been created for them by an organization, and sometimes that's a part of it, sometimes not. Sometimes couples go through that together and they become stronger and are able to explore their independence within that relationship. Anyway.
Right, totally. I'm just cracking open this corner. So, basically committed to him right at 18, and I would honestly love to see him with other women, fire emoji. But he's experiencing a lot of jealousy, even over small, non-sexual things, and it's getting in the way of our closeness. I don't know what to do. We have a neighbor who is male, who we're both friends with, that we've been doing non-sexual cuddling with recently, and while I absolutely love it, I think my husband is deeply uncomfortable with it, even though he tells me it's okay. Just interested in your thoughts. I feel caught between a lot of conflicting forces.
So real.
When I read that, I thought that is such a sort of typical gendered response. I don't say that like with any judgment, but like gendered response, I feel like, to opening up a relationship, like the woman finding it erotic, the thought of seeing her man with someone else, but then him feeling a ton of jealousy. And I do feel like, like the ways we're all conditioned by gender expectations play into that. Through it's nobody's fault. It's not like bad to be experiencing jealousy. That's a really normal human feeling. Yeah,
even within polyamory, I don't think there's ever just like a magical wand that gets waved that, makes jealousy just disappear. I think polyamory, rather than being for people who don't experience jealousy in relationships, it's just more of like a decision of what to do with that jealousy and how to contextualize it. And the typical monogamous model is like, shut it down before it even happens. And sometimes the shadow of that can be, no independence, codependence, manipulation, cutting people off from other relationships that could be actually genuinely helpful for them out of jealousy and fear of what could develop, which just is not the poison I usually pick. Not to say that it always has to be that unhealthy level, but that's just, I think, the tendency on that one. And then the polyamorous one is like, okay, we can maybe still experience that, but what are we going to do about it? Does that mean you're not allowed to do this or that? And I think for me, the approach is like, well, you should be like, a person should be able to do what they want. Granted, when we love people and our lives are interconnected, the things that we do does impact people, which does go into our internal calculations of what types of relationships are facilitating the most joy, are the easiest for us, the easiest for our partners. Like, there's a lot that goes into it.
And I feel like, especially if you're married, and probably even especially if you have kids, you really have to like balance that sense of security with that need for freedom in ways that make sense for you. Like, I think the ideal, hypothetically, is that none of us feel the need to sort of impose restrictions on each other. But it's also like, if things being a complete free-for-all are gonna like just trigger one or both people in the couple so much, then it's like not gonna lead to anything good either. So you have to kind of like find your own boundaries, and because I think you deserve to feel safe. It's kind of like you want to maybe figure out the amount you can sort of challenge yourself and like what you're used to, and become willing to sit with discomfort. But I feel like if it goes past a certain level, then it just becomes unproductive, and then maybe you're gonna like destroy your whole relationship. So I feel like every couple has to figure that out for themselves. But based on this message, it sounds like these two are like going about it in like a united way. Like, even though jealousy is coming up from you cuddling with the neighbor, it sounds like it's still something you're doing together. So I guess like my main thing I would say to this message is just that like that jealousy is normal, especially in the beginning. Like I wouldn't see it as like a sign of anything negative. I think it's just like both of you figuring out how to relate to that jealousy and how much power you do and don't want it to have. Because like jealousy is not like the best like master to be serving, but then also like your insecurity does matter. So
and it's like, jealousy is a beast. Like when it rears its head, it's like an animal kind of like panic, and it's not something that you can just like reason out. You really also might part of like learning to regulate your own nervous system and how to be meeting your needs and moving energy in your body like becomes so important because otherwise, a fit of jealousy can like level a person.
Yeah, no, truly. It's a very charged
yeah.
feeling.
Yeah.
I really did like Esther Perel says that, I think she said Brazil, I've probably talked about this before, but in other cultures like Brazil, which I think is the one she mentioned, jealousy, you served in Brazil, so maybe you'll know about this, maybe not. But anyway, jealousy in every culture isn't seen the way it's seen in our culture, where it's like this really bad feeling. It's like there are cultures where it's seen as kind of an erotic energy, because it can kind of inspire you to sort of, you know, like show up more in a more like sort of fun, flirty way for your partner. Like I do think there's ways you can change the narrative around jealousy to allow it to be, you know, it's like energy you can harness in potentially a different way. Maybe not, but maybe you can, you know?
Yeah, I think it's part of learning the like dance of relationships. And at first you may be kind of clumsy and step on each other's feet a bit. But as you learn that and get comfortable with seeing them, your partner, you know, metaphorically or maybe even physically dance with other people and learn that balance with you. And I really just think always go back again and again to curiosity being the like great unspoken love language of relationships.
So true.
Both in trying to like understand what our partner is feeling in any given moment, so that it's not just like, oh, I'm going to assert my needs and desires onto this person or try to figure out how to get them, meet them covertly. It's like, what are you experiencing? What's going on? And when my partner, I can feel maybe drifting temporarily to other things or people or whatever, getting curious about my own needs and desires. And when those feelings flare up of like, oh, how come it's not me? And how come and I'm not lovable enough? If I were hot enough or cool enough or rich enough or blah, 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 only. It's like, well, what do I actually need right now? What do I actually want right now? And then like learning to become my own lover and make sure that like I'm loving myself and not just expecting somebody else to do that for me.
I also think because this couple is just entering into polyamory,
it's so much harder to open up than to enter in.
But it sounds like they're kind of taking it slow, which seems probably sensible. And also I feel like it's probably good to make sure that after you have an experience where like difficult feelings come up, you're coming back together and you're like re-solidifying that bond every time. Sounds like they haven't really been doing things separate from each other yet. I guess the only other thing I would say is like have quite a bit of grace for each other. Like from what I know of couples entering into open relationships from, you know, like a married monogamous one, I think it's one of those things where like because of the nature of jealousy and all of our conditioning around monogamy, it's very easy to get like very moralistic, and like if you feel like your partner did something like wrong, even though it's like it's pretty gray in that space where you're figuring out polyamory, what's even okay, it's very easy to become like very
righteous.
Like self-righteous, like, well, you did. And it's like, I think if you're trying to move into an open relationship, then you just have to be willing to like accept that things might happen that aren't like picture perfect, and part of that experimentation, you know, you can have boundaries and those aren't bad, but I do think there is something to be said for like the whole thing is about wanting to sort of create this openness of experience and to be curious and to see what might work for you. So there might be times where one or both of you kind of like steps over a line, and I feel like you kind of have to be, I think if that's not something you can handle the idea of, like don't go into having an open relationship, because you're not, it's, you know what I mean? You can't keep everything like neatly packaged from what I know.
Right.
In that scenario, you have to kind of be willing to allow for it being messy. But I think if you're like coming together regularly and talking through it honestly, then...
Yeah, your body needs to like learn that it's safe to experience jealousy.
Yeah.
And that like triggered fight or flight, or, you know, that abandonment wound that gets triggered, whatever it is, to sit with that, to again, like make sure you're addressing your own needs, and then to, like you said, come together and like teach our bodies that it's okay. Because like in that moment, especially early on, or like in the beginning of a different relationship, I've experienced this. I think probably every time I've had a partner start seeing somebody else in a different capacity, where instantly I get triggered. And it's just like, oh, new situation that's gonna like topple the boat, and what if, what. Like, okay. And then, you know, we can talk about it and joke about it. And once you like, I think meeting the other person is often helpful, though sometimes not.
Yeah, maybe personality dependent.
It's like no real person ever stacks up to the imaginary threat that our fear mechanisms create about them, you know, or just about the situation, and just being like, oh, I am loved, you know, we love each other. It's okay to feel this and move on. And yeah, having grace for each other, having curiosity about our experience. I did want to say on the subject of boundaries, people falsely adopt therapy speak. The Jonah Hill instance is a perfect example of like being like, boundaries is a way for me to control other people. Right. When boundaries are never about other people's behavior, it's about things that you establish for yourself. And that's why it's so important to get curious about your own needs and desires, so that you can say, this is how I'm feeling. These are the actions that are going on. This is how I'm feeling about it. What do I need to do for myself to ensure that my feelings are protected? And that's never like, well, you're not allowed to see so-and-so, or you're not allowed to go here or there. It's like, I won't see so-and-so. I won't go here or there. I need to have time for myself. I need to, you know, whatever it is.
Yeah, boundaries shouldn't just be this sort of threat that you're leveling against someone. Because I think that's another thing. People will use them as like, if you do that thing, then I'm going to completely pull away from you in some either vague or defined way. But it's like, they don't necessarily mean it, and they're not thinking of it through the lens of like, because that is what will help me restore balance within myself. They're literally just like using it as a way to try and get, I feel like I've been screaming that about boundaries for so many years, and now
they're not
thank you to Jonah Hill for like bringing, you know, it's nice when things come into the public attention. But yeah, like boundaries shouldn't involve anyone having to do anything really. But you also have to like be sincere in your boundaries. I think a lot of the time when people are like just learning about them, they just have these ideas of what sounds nice. Like they're like, oh, I think if it was like this, then that would like help me feel safe.
Yes.
But they're not really thinking it through of like, okay, so if that something happens that is not that, like genuinely what will you do to preserve yourself? And yeah, it's easy to kind of come at it wrong. Or I feel like when people are new to setting boundaries, they'll sort of just kind of try to like randomly enforce control in these sort of sporadic ways that aren't necessarily like consistent with like an understanding of what they genuinely need. Yeah. It's just like, you can't do that, you know.
Yeah. How can I avoid pain by trying to like at the hip, shooting at the hip out of a fear response, like try to control the situation. Yeah. This is a sample bias of my own. I don't want to make any sweeping generalizations, but I've seen a lot of men who initiate polyamorous relationships thinking, oh, I'll be able to have sex with other people. And then they open it up, and then their partner starts connecting with other people.
Women usually do have a better time in polyamory, or an easier time, because single men will sleep with a partnered woman, but a lot of single women aren't that interested in a partnered man.
Right.
Just one of the small wins of feminism.
Which is why bisexuality becomes so important for But and then because maybe they see their partner having those opportunities that are afforded to them, they feel like they need to control their partner's behavior in ways that don't go both ways. And I've just seen that a lot with a lot of like female friends that I have. That's their introduction to polyamory, is like, yeah, my boyfriend wanted us to do it, I started doing it, and then my boyfriend freaked out.
Yeah, so true. Yeah.
And, you know, not always the case. # not all men.
Yeah, and it's understandable that that's the case for men, and that gender difference often exists because men have been taught to see, things differently than women. Like it's not coincidence that so many women like the idea of their man being with other women, but men don't. Like when the rubber meets the road, it's not hot for them. It's simply
they love when their woman is with another woman.
And they are the star. Yeah. So, any final thoughts for this woman entering
Sorry, it's been a little tough. As something I always try to keep in mind is like everything is just data, and we don't have to have a story around it. But it's just like, okay, these types of things are eliciting these types of reactions, and let's just keep track of the data so that we can make decisions that are more comfortable for all of us. And if it comes down to like reevaluating or renegotiating relationships, hey, everything's on the table. Let's get creative.
Yeah, and I think anytime you enter into like a new way of living that is not conventional or that like goes against the status quo you're used to, it makes sense that that's going to bring up difficult emotions, and that's kind of part of it. Like that's the price you pay for freedom is like working through your discomfort, you know? Because it's like monogamy is not a bad box to be in, but it's a box that most people were taught to be in like at all costs, and so breaking out of the glass box, sometimes you cut your hand.
It's true.
As we'll talk about in our upcoming Claymation podcast episode about mimes.
Yeah. I think we don't talk about that enough, how just like the mere act of going against societal normalcy is like tough in and of itself. And thank God, I'm so grateful for the like older polyamorous people I've met who would like validated what I was experiencing and being like, oh, there's people who have like done this and have been doing it for a long time and it works, and it's not just like a marriage blow up device or a method of swinging from one relationship to another. That like my feelings, which is that I just love a lot of people, including like past partners that I've had. Like I hate the mindset that's like, oh, there's one person for you and everybody that you're with before then was like a mistake or the wrong person. I'm like, no way. Every single like person I've been with was the exact right person at the exact right time. Yeah. And without them, I wouldn't be who I am today. So like, I'm really, really grateful to all the partners I've had and all the, experiences and relationshiping that I've had with people, because they're all part of it.
I also think a lot of the time ex-Mormons, because you're coming from such a scrupulous culture, it makes it even harder to sort of step into new ways of being where things are more messy and less predictable. And I think a lot of the time ex-Mormons will be very wary of other ex-Mormons who like suddenly they're taking psychedelics and they're having open relationships, and they sort of they still are buying into the idea that is them going off the rails, because again, you still have like a Mormon brain kind of when you leave Mormonism, in that like you're used to things being very like, if you do this, you get this, and like this is the one way to be. And then I think it can just feel very disconcerting for people. And yeah, I just think there's a lot of fear there with anything that is like uncomfortable and can't, like going from being in a monogamous relationship to a polyamorous one, like that's not really for most people going to be like a super neat transition that's very predictable, because you're literally doing something that there's not a lot of examples in society of people doing. I mean, they do exist, but you know what I mean? It's just, there's a lot of unknowns, so it's understandable that it's kind of, oof. Yeah.
See you on Field.
Is that the polyamory dating app?
Yeah.
Nice. Okay, so this person said, I have a super safe, incredible partner of 7 months who lied about the start of our relationship, and I just found out. So they've been together for 7 months. 7 months later, just found this out. He said he had been tested for STDs and hadn't had sex for many weeks, so we would be safe to have unprotected sex. So I did. And now I found out that his timeline was a complete lie. He had slept with 2 women, including his ex-wife, the week before we met and the week we met. We're about to merge our lives together, and I want to rebuild trust, and I believe he's worth it. But my sweet little Mormon brain, who wasn't given informed consent, is really messed up by this.
Yeah, right.
Understandably, yeah. Especially if sexual health is coming into it. It doesn't sound like she got an STD from him, but like I think she's just bringing that up to mention that, like, you know, STDs are obviously a primary reason it's important to be honest about your sexual partners. So that sucks. Like, Mormon brain or not, that's just a tough thing to find out.
Yeah.
And it's tough because that's the kind of thing where people don't tell the truth because they don't feel safe to tell the truth, which is not your fault. But as in, like, it's like it wouldn't have needed to have been a thing for him if I don't know this person, but it's like it's so much at the beginning of a relationship. I feel like you have a lot of freedom to be honest because there's no sort of agreed upon expectations yet. So like that's the time to be on. I mean, it's always time to be honest, you know. But it's like I'm guessing he didn't tell her because he thought if he was honest about having slept with 2 people, the week before they met, the week they met, that she wouldn't like him.
Mm-hmm.
But that's like revealing like shame that doesn't need to be there, because it's like, if this is a person that is right for you, you're not going to need to lie to be with them.
Right.
So that's what's so sad about it, is it's like, I'm sure it's like just coming from like insecurity and shame in him, but that doesn't make it any easier for you, the person that was lied to.
Yeah, and I also am curious about the circumstances under which she discovered the truth, whether that was voluntarily brought forth or she discovered it, because that does like make a difference in how
Yeah,
you,
that's interesting.
read into it. Because if it's something that you just like happened upon, I think that's way worse than in being like, hey, I wasn't like, if he was demonstrating some trying to be forthright and kind of.
Yeah, because she said we're about to merge our lives together. So I'm hoping it was him being like, hey, as we're about to merge our lives together, and now I'm in this relationship where maybe he's been unlearning some of that shame. Who's to say? I'm dreaming big here. Like, I just want to be upfront about this and tell you.
Call me old-fashioned, but I think 7 months is way too early to be considering merging lives with somebody.
Oh, me too. That's good.
Like that already makes like little orange flags go off in my head. I am a notoriously slow mover, and so take that with a grain of salt. But like, I really am like, I think it is wise to experience someone in all seasons.
Yeah.
For at the very least before you consider. And there's different phases and degrees of like interweaving lives. So, maybe it's not like, oh, we're getting married next week. Maybe it just means, we're going to be moving closer together. Who knows what that means.
We're not passing judgment on anyone's.
Yeah.
I think for both of us, that would be a scary soonness at which to merge lives. But
yes,
again, who knows what that means.
6 months, I feel like, is really when the like, you've kind of passed certain levels of compatibility checkpoints.
Yeah.
Where you're like 2 months, you're like, okay, we're having a fun time. Let's
they always
take
say
like
anyone can sort of like wear a mask for 6 months. It does feel like 6 months is where the rubber meets the road. Why do I keep saying where the rubber meets the road so much lately? I don't know.
Rubber loves to meet road, so we love a meet cute.
I also feel like this is probably a relatable question, just like that. A few months in, finding out that something that maybe didn't even need to be lied about was, and then that's just going to give you such a weird feeling. Yeah,
and it's hard to know without like, I want to be like, oh, that guy's an asshole and you need to drop him immediately. And maybe that's the case, but maybe, maybe there's just like...
Yeah, I feel like everything comes down to like, how is he being about this? Like if he's being very understanding about like, yeah, like I shouldn't have lied to you about that was wrong. And, then you're in a spot where you can move forward. But if there's any kind of sort of defensiveness or justification, I'd be a bit wary of that. Like you just need like complete owning that he did something that was like morally off.
Yeah. No time is too soon for dishonesty, but 7 months, right off the bat, lying about like things is kind of something to be wary about. And we've all had 7-month-long flings that we thought were really something, only to be like, you know what, maybe...
She did say super safe, incredible partner of 7 months, which I know we can all be fooled for 7 months, but I do feel like that's meaningful, that like the rest of the relationship is feeling very safe and wonderful.
Dishonesty just sucks. It does put you in like a state of insanity because your entire context for reality becomes undermined. So then you're having to reevaluate every single interaction with this person. Yeah. And you can feel betrayed and being like, oh, this whole time I was vulnerable with you. I was actually unsafe because it was based on a lie or whatever. Or I wouldn't have been this way had I known the truth.
And then it's like, for the relationship to be healthy moving forward, you have to be able to let that go, but then it's like super understandable that it's not easy to let that go. So it's like this weird dance where they have to be willing to like, potentially rehash it time and time again, because your feelings might continue coming up for a long time. And I feel like that can really like put a wedge between people. The other piece that I feel like is worth, as we're just dissecting these to death, worth touching on is that one of the people he slept with in that week or 2 weeks before they met was his ex-wife.
Yeah, that is...
Which I think couples break up and they fall into having sex And that doesn't, like, you know, necessarily mean that there's still feelings there or anything, but it does feel kind of relevant to the fact that he wasn't able to share that. Like, it's, to me, that kind of gives, you know, there's probably a bit more processing that needed to happen.
Yeah. And I could get like someone hooking up with their ex, meeting somebody and not wanting to be like, we're broken up, but we did. But it can be as simple as that. That's the thing, is it really can be as simple as like, yeah, we're breaking up, but things are a little, you know, how it is. We did hook up last week, but I think that's the end of it. And you know what? Maybe that's a turn off. But again, if people who are turned off by the truth, that deserve to be turned off by the truth, you know, like.
I get it, but I also think it's tough because I imagine if you're this man and just giving him the benefit of the doubt, and he's like, oh my God, this girl is amazing. I really want. I'm not justifying the dishonesty. That part is not cool.
Yeah.
But I could see how, like, most of us in society are not trained to be able to handle, like, this guy that you just started seeing who you really like slept with his ex-wife last week. Like, I feel like we would be able to, like, reasonably handle that and kind of understand the nuance there. But that's not how society conditioned any of us.
No.
Like, we are taught to be like, oh, then get as far away from him as possible. And I could imagine him being like, well, I don't want to lose this girl because, like, she's amazing. So it's just tough.
Can we just acknowledge again how hard it is to talk about sex and intimacy and all these things anyway? Because again, I sure as hell didn't get like a rigorous education on any of this. And so like any amount of confidence that I've been able to develop since, you know, that time and being able to address things, like it definitely hasn't always been like that. And I really do understand like firsthand the sense of shame of wrestling and like knowing how much to acknowledge, and without that blueprint, because that wasn't our blueprint, it can be hard. And so I want to have a little bit of grace for people.
Yeah, because I think sometimes people will be dishonest or not like share information because they feel, probably rightly so, that a certain narrative will be created about what that meant. Like, hypothetically, maybe he was like, me sleeping with my ex-wife was just like a weird thing that happened, and like, you know, it was just like, shouldn't have happened. I don't have feelings for her, whatever. So I don't want this girl to like think that there's something there that isn't. But then it like sucks, because then in lying and then her finding out later, you then almost create that impression more, because it's like, what did you have to hide? So I think the main thing is just, how's he being about all this? If he's being super understanding and upfront and he knows he did something wrong and he's able to sort of express honestly why he didn't feel safe to tell you in a way that, you know, is just him like sharing what was true for him at that time, not like defending it as like more okay than it was, then I'd say move forward if there's no other signs that the relationship is negative.
Yeah.
And it sounds like, I mean, she described it as like super safe, incredible partner, and it sounds like it's something she wants to move on from. So yeah, and maybe he's ex-Mormon as well, and so it was all just a weird, you know, I feel like that's a whole thing where like sex has been put on this pedestal and has been so important and monogamous your whole life, and then like, so he probably did feel shame, I imagine, at all of that. It's a lot there. I think that's that one. Yep. Okay, this one says, I don't even know how to date in Utah. I feel like that is just, I hear that a lot. And add in that I have a chronic illness and ableism runs deep in this state, and I'm about to be 35. Like, how do I even date, let alone make friends? I'm just living in my isolation era and it's not a vibe. Tough. I always hear people say that, you know, about Utah. I think a lot of people feel that frustration, and it's like one of those things where I want everyone in any situation to feel like there's possibilities, like even if you live in Utah, you know. Like, I think it's like good to not get swallowed up by the fact that like, yeah, Utah probably isn't an ideal place for a lot of people to date, but it's like, am I being naive in saying like, but I think you kind of have to, if you want something, you have to like maintain the hope. Despite that maybe the odds are kind of stacked against you. Yeah. And either way, at least in my experience, the pursuit of self and pursuit of interests and hobbies and talents and things are more gonna fill you with more personal satisfaction, and then also connect you with people, whether online or in real life, who are also sharing the same interests
and seeking out their thing. And I think we're attracted to people who are in their and in that energy of like, I'm in my thing, I'm pursuing what's interesting to me, I'm not just like waiting for a relationship. And it's hard to know without knowing exactly what the chronic condition is and the level of ability, whether it's like literally can't leave the house or can't walk, I don't know what the situation is. But to the best that anyone is able, I think trying to be like, what makes me happy? And like literally, I've literally had to like be like, for this sequence of my life, next 6 months, next year, I'm falling in love with me. I'm taking me on dates. I'm making myself delicious little meals. I'm having a little glass of wine, and I'm going to give myself some little body tickles and like draw a bath, and I'm putting flowers in it, and I'm going to have a piece of chocolate after, like
one single piece.
One single piece for my sweetie.
I love that, and I think that is ultimately sort of like always the answer with relationships is love yourself first, as cheesy as it sounds. But like being willing to sort of like maybe think outside the box of convention with dating. Like maybe if you have a chronic illness and it is harder to meet people outside your house, like lean into the digital space more and like FaceTime people and just kind of, I feel like that's such obvious advice, but just sort of like be willing to say like, if I'm going to date someone, it's going to have to be like a situation that works for me. So just start with that mindset. And it's like if dating the way that a non-chronically ill person might date doesn't work for you, don't try and make it work for you. Just be like, I want to date someone who I can like maybe FaceTime for a few weeks first before we meet up. Who knows what
Which in this day and age, I think ideal for everyone. I need to start doing that, like before in-person meeting, do the like, hey, let's just see how we vibe.
God, yeah, because you can meet someone and within 5 seconds be like, the energy is not there. Like it's not going to be it. I immediately know for a fact. Yeah. And then it's like, but then I've already committed to at least a 1 hour thing, nothing worse.
And also in the pursuit of self, if that also is like, okay, if my like fullest, most like safe and enriched and flowering lifestyle isn't here in Utah, well then what do I need to do to get out of Utah? It's not even about dating at that point.
Yeah, you kind of have to do an analysis of like if you have reasons to stay in Utah, obviously like it doesn't matter where you live, like there's no right or wrong, but you got to be kind of really honest with yourself. Like, can I build the type of life I want to build here? But then I also feel like don't be defeatist about it, because sometimes I feel like people romanticize the idea of leaving Utah. Like if I just could leave Utah,
there's nothing more Utah than romanticizing leaving Utah.
So it's like there is something to be said for like wherever you are right now, be there totally. And it's obviously fine to think about other options. But also though, this person mentioned making friends, and I feel like that is maybe not that one has to come before the other, but maybe like prioritizing friendship first might be the more important thing. And then because that like generally will connect you to other people.
And like meet a lot of those like social needs that we expect from a partner. So then you're less likely to fall into maybe accept less than you deserve because you've been isolated. That seems important. I do feel like there's never been a better time to make friends digitally, and you can take things beyond just like reading stuff. Like you can FaceTime people, or you can there's ways to connect that are more real than just like Instagram comments or whatever, especially when there's like an activity or intention for it, like, which is why I say get into your hobbies or activism. Like a lot of people meet community just by being like, whoa, this is a cause important to me. How can I get involved? Oh, there's a Facebook group. Let me join that. Oh, they're doing a digital gathering on March 20th. Okay, I'm going to notify me. I'm going to be there. I'm going to introduce myself. It might be kind of weird, but at least, get out there in a way. I think something people overlook, this is me putting my life coach hat on, is in a situation like this, number one, getting really clear on what it is you want. But when I say really clear, I mean in kind of like a zoomed out way. So it's like, maybe it's like, I want to have a circle of friends who make me feel seen and heard, and then after you're like clear on what your needs are or what your wants are, I think a piece people really overlook is like
you have to kind of set yourself the task of researching how you can get those needs met. So if it's like, I want friends, it's like, okay, ideally, what kind of interests would my friends have? Okay, so how can I, do a bit of Googling or search around for like maybe like poetry. Maybe there's like a virtual poetry thing happening that's like still of local people, just, it sounds like boring. And I think sometimes we almost like get very existential, understandably, when we're in situations like this, but like research is like a really underrated thing, because it's like that is the bridge between like what you want and like that actually happening. But I think it's like I know that I see it in myself where I'm almost like, but I shouldn't have to do that, or like I don't want to have to like research, I just want friends to come to me.
Yeah.
And like they might, but like they also might not. So like you deserve to feel empowered to kind of go after it. And then I feel like even just by like maybe you do some research, or maybe you like go to a virtual poetry thing and it's not really your vibe, but you've like still stepped into that energy of like, I can pursue getting my needs met. I am a person who says yes to new things. And so like even just like the process, even if it maybe like you might try one thing and that'll be it and it'll be great, or you might have to try a few things, but like it just puts you in that kind of momentum. And if you have chronic illness and maybe like fatigue is a big deal, like it doesn't have to be, there's like crazy effort every day of the week, you can sort of just be like, what can I do? What is like realistic for me to do? And just take one step. And then I'm a big advocate for just trying to be in the mindset of like, what is like the one thing you can do? And then like, what's the next thing?
The first step. I have a lot of big dreams, and I've had to be like, they seem so impossible. Like, I don't know how to do this or go there. Like, it all seems crazy. And it's like, but if I did, what would be the very first step? And it's usually being like, how to. And I love what you said about really thinking about like, what is it that I want? Like, and trying to envision that. And it's like, well, okay, well, I guess I gotta go there or try that thing, or maybe talk to somebody, call somebody,
It's
there's
quite
a lot
like
of, I'm
boring,
thinking
a lot of the good
contexts
answers
that aren't necessarily like dating and romantic, but
because again, like existential overwhelm is easy to fall victim to in that situation when your needs are not being met. Like it's kind of harder to live and to function when our needs aren't being met, so it becomes harder to then it's kind of like it's easier to get a job if you have a job, it's easier to find friends if you have friends, but you kind of have to like say no to that part of you that just wants to like collapse into despair. You really have to figure out what for you helps you overcome potentially the despair that dating in Utah brings up for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Understandably.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
For all of these questions, please, everyone else, feel free to weigh in because we're just sort of spitballing. I'm a lesbian and I dated a girl while we were both Mormon. I was kind of on my way out of the church though. She left on a mission after. Do I stay friends with that ex? It was a difficult experience because I had some of my firsts with her, and since I was closeted, I talked to no one about it and had no one to be excited with. First kiss, first girlfriend, etc. On the other side of that same coin, I didn't talk to anyone if I felt like something might have been weird or unhealthy. So I'm guessing there was some weird, unhealthy stuff in it. We've been friends for a while and she's on her mission now, but I've been thinking about things that happened in the past. She would get jealous and kind of upset if I was able to do something that she wasn't, like fix something. I was also hesitant to tell her when I got promoted because I knew she might be upset. She had really bad anxiety, which I understand, and maybe that was the reason why she acted that way. I was also very depressed, as per the queer Mormon experience, so it was hard to be her only support because she refused to seek help. If I'm being honest, I'm upset that she went on a mission. She saw so up close how much the church harms queer people, including me and other close friends, yet she went out and is spreading it. I'm also aware that she's a victim in the same system, though I know she hasn't experienced a lot of the same shit since she's bi and can make the church work for her. She's also told me a lot that everyone always leaves her. I don't want to validate that. I just feel like I'm a bad person for being upset about her mission / other things, or thinking about ending the friendship. It hasn't all been bad. Any advice on how to move forward? Lots in there. That's a tough one. The main thing I'm getting from that is just like there's just so many feelings wrapped up in that message that just sound like, difficult to process.
Yeah.
There's a lot to unpack.
It's all valid. There's no wrong feelings. It's okay to feel hurt that your friend is, choosing to go on a mission, and it sucks. Like, it really does. It's hard to watch that. It's hard for me to watch loved ones supporting the church, knowing the pain that it causes and the things that it's done. And I have to just be like, well, sometimes it's just ignorance, and as unfortunate and tragic as it is, exactly as you said, it's not like her fault, right? There's a lot of cult programming that goes into it. We're all like, it takes a lot of time to just learn how to think, and a lot of people aren't given the opportunity to learn how to properly think, or just haven't had the right combination of experiences and information to lead them to a certain direction. But all that being said, and as unjust and horrible as it is, I really think it's true that just the more unconditional you can be in love and support for them, the more likely they are to really internalize that, because in the church they're not getting that unconditional love and support. It's always, everything is like dependent on you acting and behaving a certain way, by doing what I tell you to do. And should ever her relationship with the church, it give her that clearer insight into the true nature of the beast, your connection will stand in stunning contrast. And I've seen that a lot over the years with people. I've had a lot of people over the years that we've done this who have come to me and been like, I'm so sorry. and
what's tough is you don't even need it.
You don't you're not even like, ha ha ha, I
satisfied.
told you. It's just like, oh, I know what, I used to do the same bullshit, so.
I think the thing is, though, it sounds like this person is kind of questioning whether she wants to continue being, like, friends with this girl and, like, being that level of... It sounds like there's kind of an element of guilt involved in her being a supportive friend, because she said... I
mean, she's going on a mission, so it's not like you're going to be able to be really close anyway.
That's true, yeah. And I think... I mean, obvious bottom line, it's completely up to you whether you want to be her friend or not. I don't think there's any like moral right or wrong there. Like, if you feel that your feelings towards her are like too complicated and it's going to be healthier for you to just like step back, that's completely valid. But if I don't know, it sounds like maybe a part of the issue is you feel like you have all these feelings that you've never been able to express to her of like, you know, how all this has made you feel. And it is kind of shit, because on a mission you really can't. I mean, you could try sending her an email expressing that, but the chances of it feeling validating are maybe, I don't know, she's kind of in a different world right now. Like, she's chosen to step into the cult. So I would say if you're only sort of maintaining contact with her out of guilt, like, that's just something to think about.
Yeah, we all deserve to be surrounded by people who not just tolerate us, but celebrate us. And who, we want people who can empathize and be compassionate and admire our individuality. And so, you deserve to have affirming community.
Yeah. It does also sound like... It sounds like some greater level of detachment needs to happen whether or not you decide to keep being friends with her. Like, it's because your emotions are still like very much present about things. So I feel like you sort of need to figure out what you need to like move forward from them, so it doesn't feel so conflicting. And then it can just be like, this is an ex-girlfriend I had, and the relationship was kind of... There was good and there was bad, and now she's kind of doing a different thing, but I like still want her in my life in this periphery way. Or you can be like, I don't want, But I feel like there's just a lot of like emotion that's still there that you deserve to sort of be free of, independent of what she's doing or what she is able to validate or not.
Yeah, and who knows what she's really going through. I'm sure that's like it's a doubling down.
Yeah.
To go on a mission after a queer relationship.
Yeah, I can't. Oof.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So who knows? Maybe it's a matter of years or something, but yeah, you have to figure out what it is that you want from that relationship and whether you need to say something or not. Sometimes that's necessary, sometimes it isn't.
Yeah. And bottom line, no, you're not a bad person for thinking about ending the friendship. I think that's understandable. I think we deserve to feel seen by our friends, and if we have ways that our friends have hurt us, whether or not they're just based on like our own perceptions, we still deserve to have it be a safe space to say that. And if you're feeling like there's no way that can happen, I mean, I guess you could try, but yeah.
And, this sounds like a really, really complicated, intertwined relationship. And so it's understandable of like needing to figure out how you orient toward this person, what kind of relationship is safe with them.
Your first relationship, that really is like...
It's a lot.
That does have a special place in you always.
And again, not knowing the specifics and everything, knowing them personally, I would just say like, generally, you don't always have to like know hardline the relationship label that a person is going to have.
That's
Again,
true,
everything can just be kind of data, and you're like, wow, I don't feel really comfortable being super close with this person. So even if I want to maintain a friendliness, it's just not someone I'm going to be like super engaged with. And I just have to like find my people and find love and affirmation with understanding community, and not people who are still wrestling with this.
Yeah, and I think if you can remove the shame, that will bring you closer to figuring out what's right for you. Because right now, like all of your feelings are like tied up with like, am I a bad person for being upset about this? You got to get rid of that and just like all your feelings are super valid. Like this is, of course you feel all these ways, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I feel bad. I didn't want to insinuate that like acting out of unconditional love was like the higher road or whatever.
No,
sometimes that's a way to do it, and sometimes
if that's because I guess like the trap there is even that can just become another way that you're like hoping someone can change.
Yeah, and I was forgetting about the dating connection prior, which a lot of times you need to have that like total cut off so that you can just get a fresh start. I do understand that. I
don't know if this is helpful for you, but what's coming to my mind is like, what a blessing to be the person that's not on the mission in that situation.
For real.
Like as much as all of this is tough and like you know you have stuff to work through and it doesn't necessarily make it easier, it's like it's going to be way harder for her because you're in a much better situation to be moving forward. So that's a tender mercy.
Yeah. Silver lining.
Yeah.
Good luck.
Also the piece about how like she told me that she's bi so she can make the church work for her. I'm like, I don't think that usually
they don't actually like that.
It doesn't really work out that good. Because how many people do we see, even who are still believing Mormons, like in their like male-female marriages, they still like want to come out as bi because it's like, this is still a piece of me that like needs expression.
Mm-hmm.
It's like if it was truly something you could just kind of swallow and be like, well, I'll just pick a man and I'll just be a straight, then you wouldn't like feel the need to do that, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that person did also say, this is just a fun closing piece, that as far as mental health goes, leaving the church has done wonders and I feel like I'm in a healthier place. Thanks again, I love your videos.
Aww.
So again, a blessing to be the person who gets to be in that space.
Well, hopefully that helps you all get ready for this Valentine's Day. Remember, if you don't have a Valentine's this Valentine's Day, it's because you're just fundamentally unlovable and you do not yet possess
the thump, which sucks, vibrates, and thumps. If you want to get a free gift card or toy from Bellessa, please enter our giveaway.
And of course, I'm kidding. You're deeply worthy of love at all moments, whether you're in a relationship or not. I think our society puts too much emphasis on romantic relationships generally. And I say that as someone who like deeply treasures my romantic relationships. So I think it makes people feel a sense of inadequacy and of like FOMO. But I do love being single. Like, I think it's a different experience that more people could really enjoy if there weren't so much a sense of like, you're not whole until you have your other half or whatever. I think that's bullshit.
I also feel like we are so obsessed with relationships because we're an emotionally repressed culture, and that's almost like the one place where we allow ourselves true intimacy, like outside of physical stuff. We as a culture don't celebrate friendship. The right wing doesn't even like that we love our pets. The pets shouldn't even be sleeping in the house, according to some Fox News commentators. I don't know, guys. I don't know.
Well, we love you so much and hope you're doing well, whatever kind of relationships you are in, and hoping that all of your dreams come true. Or at least all the good ones. Yeah, all the ones. And we hope that the ones that aren't in your best interests, we hope your dreams get shattered and then you discover a new dream that's better than you ever knew was even possible. Because I do think sometimes what we think is going to be the best for us is not. And what we are most afraid of is the thing we need to confront the most. Wow.
Something to think about. We're reading 10 Issues Among the Nephites on Patreon, so if you want to support the channel and also be part of that magical adventure to Mormon Narnia with us, go join our
It's
Patreon.
so fun.
Yeah. If you also want to support the channel in other ways, you can use Venmo or PayPal or buy our merch or buy our candle or cast a positive spell.
Yeah, all you witches out there, hit
Please,
us up with
we
some.
could use it, yeah.
Okay, I love you.
Okay, bye. Happy Valentine's Day.
Happy Valentine's
Let's do a thumbnail.